Michael adjusted the red DoorDash backpack on his shoulders and rang the golden doorbell of the mansion in Beverly Hills. The door opened slowly, revealing a hall lit by crystal chandeliers and guests dressed in gala attire, laughing loudly. Silence fell for a second when they noticed his presence. One of the men approached, took the order, and before slamming the door in his face, said loudly for everyone to hear, "Look at this. Even the party food is carried in by people who would never set foot here as guests." The laughter echoed. Michael's face burned. He held his breath, trying to keep his dignity, but every stare, every mocking smile was an invisible blow. What no one imagined that night was that this humiliation would only be the beginning of a story that would turn lives upside down, and weeks later, make that same mansion the stage for something that would shock everyone. If this story already caught your attention in the first seconds, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see what happens next. Michael Johnson gripped tightly the thermal DoorDash bag with the sushi order he had just picked up from an upscale restaurant in West Hollywood. The traffic on Sunset Boulevard was heavy, and every minute of delay could mean a bad rating. He took a deep breath, repeating to himself that he needed this run. The rent for his small apartment in Inglewood was due at the end of the week, and he was still $60 short. The GPS blinked. Final destination, a mansion in Beverly Hills at the top of North Roxbury Drive. Michael parked the rental car, adjusted the red backpack, and walked up to the imposing gate, where 2 cameras tracked him from head to toe. He pressed the golden doorbell. The gate opened slowly, revealing an entrance lined with luxury cars, drivers in suits waiting for their bosses. He crossed the marble sidewalk and knocked on the main door. The handle turned slowly, and suddenly the world inside seemed to freeze. A huge hall illuminated by crystal chandeliers, full of guests dressed in gala attire. Michael, in his faded jacket and worn-out sneakers, stood still for a second, aware of every gaze turning to him. A tall man with perfectly slicked-back gray hair approached. It was Richard Campbell, a real estate magnate in Los Angeles, known for his extravagant parties. He grabbed the order without even looking into Michael's eyes and, before turning his back, raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Even the party food arrives carried by someone who would never set foot here as a guest." The laughter exploded. Michael felt his face burn. His heart pounded as if he had taken an invisible punch. The guests laughed not only at Richard's words, but at his very presence. Every smile was a cruel reminder of his place in the social scale, invisible when useful, ridiculed when noticed. He forced out a barely audible, "Have a good night," turned, and walked quickly away. But the humiliation kept echoing in his mind. Outside, he took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. What no one in that hall could imagine was that this moment would be just the beginning of something much bigger. Back in the car, Michael sat for a few seconds staring into the rearview mirror. He saw his own tired face, deep dark circles, unkempt beard, shoulders hunched under the weight of years of deliveries and sleepless nights. He thought of quitting right there. But then he remembered Vanessa Carter, a close friend who worked at Uber Eats. She used to say, "Every delivery has a purpose, even if it doesn't seem like it yet." As he drove back for another order, Michael couldn't shake from his mind a scene he had noticed inside the mansion. A blonde young woman, apparently Richard's daughter, discreetly rolling her eyes when her father made the joke. She seemed uncomfortable, almost ashamed of his attitude. It was just a detail, a fleeting moment, but it was burned into his memory. That night, alone in his cramped apartment, Michael couldn't sleep. He replayed every second of the humiliation, every laugh echoing in his mind. He picked up his phone and opened the DoorDash app. He saw the accumulated balance, barely enough to survive the next week. A notification appeared. "New delivery available, Beverly Hills." He hesitated, declined, and set the phone aside. He no longer wanted to set foot in that area. The sound of the old fridge filled the silence of the room. Michael stood up, opened the window, and looked out at the city lights. He felt a mix of anger and helplessness. He wondered why some people believed they had the right to treat others like disposable objects. Still, an inner voice repeated, "This can't have been in vain." The next day, he met Vanessa at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. She was exhausted after a night of deliveries, but still smiling. Michael told her what had happened. Her eyes filled with indignation. "They have no idea what you go through every day. You are not invisible, Michael. You can't let them make you believe that. Michael Johnson woke up every day before the sun rose, even without having slept properly. The alarm went off at 5, but most of the time he was already awake, staring at the stained ceiling of his small apartment in Inglewood. The worn-out mattress creaked when he got up, and the first gesture of the day was always the same: open the DoorDash app and check his accumulated earnings. Rarely did the amount exceed $60 at the start of the morning. While he set water to boil on the old stove, his phone vibrated. A message from Vanessa Carter, a longtime friend and fellow warrior in the world of deliveries through Uber Eats. Already out on the streets, Mike? The city never sleeps. Michael smiled. Vanessa always had a way of putting energy where there was only exhaustion. She lived in a studio in Koreatown and worked practically every night, crossing Los Angeles on her blue motorcycle. She was the opposite of him in many ways. She spoke loudly, laughed fearlessly, and had a courage Michael envied. Together, they shared stories, frustrations, and sometimes cheap meals when the night brought in a little extra. That morning, Michael gulped down a black coffee and headed to the rental car. The engine sputtered, but still carried him forward. The streets of Los Angeles were empty, except for a few other couriers who, like him, were chasing the first orders of the day. The still cold air burned his lungs, but the rush to get deliveries left no room for contemplation. On the way to the first restaurant, the memory of the Beverly Hills mansion returned to haunt him. The laughter, the humiliation, Richard Campbell's look. Michael pressed the gas, as if he could leave the past behind. But it was impossible. Every delivery now carried that invisible weight, the memory of being reduced to a stereotype, to someone of no worth in the eyes of the elite. In the afternoon, he met Vanessa outside a Thai restaurant in Culver City. She was sitting on her motorcycle, drinking a cheap soda, waiting for the order to be ready. "You look wrecked," she said bluntly. "I'm fine. Just tired." Michael averted his gaze. "Don't fool me, Mike. You've been different since that night." He sighed deeply. Once again he told how he had been treated at the mansion, trying to hide the pain that still throbbed. Vanessa listened in silence, only shaking her head. They may have money, they may have huge houses, but they'll never know what it's like to run across the whole city just to pay rent. "We don't just carry food on our backs, we carry our own survival." Her words echoed. Michael realized how they were part of an invisible machine, sustaining a system that rarely acknowledged them. Thousands of delivery drivers like them roamed Los Angeles every day, crossing rich and poor neighborhoods, always seen as rushing shadows. At night, back in his neighborhood, Michael dropped off an order at a small house in Crenshaw. An elderly lady opened the door and, upon receiving the food, looked at him with gratitude. "You have no idea how much you helped me. I can't go out alone to buy food anymore." "Thank you, son." Michael smiled genuinely for the first time in days. It was in these small moments that he felt some purpose in continuing. It wasn't the dollars that mattered, but the humanity that sometimes appeared amid the chaos. Even so, the bills piled up. The overdue rent notice was pinned to the fridge, along with a handwritten note from his mother, kept since she passed away years ago. "Never forget that you have value." He read those words whenever hope threatened to disappear. The following dawn, Vanessa called. She was nervous. "Mike, someone almost hit my motorcycle today. A drunk guy flying down Wilshire out of control. I swear I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." Michael was silent for a few seconds. He knew she was exhausted, just like him. They were two workers trying to stay strong in a city that never stopped swallowing dreams. "You're stronger than you think, Vanessa," he replied. "But we can't live like this forever." There was an uncomfortable truth in that thought. They clung to deliveries as if they were the only way out, but deep down they knew it wasn't sustainable. Still, quitting the app seemed impossible. It was the thin line keeping them afloat. One rainy late afternoon, while waiting for an order in Westwood, Michael received the notification. Delivery to Beverly Hills, North Roxbury Drive. His heart raced. He hesitated, his hand trembling over the screen. For a few seconds, he thought of rejecting it. But the rain was pouring, orders were scarce, and that run paid above average. Vanessa, who was also online, noticed his hesitation when he mentioned it. "Go, Mike. Don't let a mansion or some idiot define who you are." He took a deep breath and accepted. At that moment, he didn't know he was about to face once again the same Golden Gate, the same looks, but under completely different circumstances. And this time, Something unexpected would happen. Something that would turn pain into a chance to prove that dignity is not measured by the address where you live. The rain had already stopped when Michael parked once again on North Roxbury Drive. His heart was racing, as if every memory of that night was lurking behind the high walls of the mansion. He turned off the car and sat in silence for a few seconds, his hands still gripping the steering wheel. This time, he wasn't completely alone. Vanessa had accepted a delivery nearby in Holmby Hills and promised to meet him afterward for support. "If anything happens, call me right away," she had said, trying to hide her concern. Michael took a deep breath, grabbed the thermal bag with an order of Italian pasta, and walked up to the Golden Gate. The cameras followed him again. The same uneasy silence settled in his chest. He rang the bell. The door opened quickly, unlike the first time. A house staff member, dressed in black, looked distressed. "Come in, quickly. The master is desperate about the situation." Michael entered, hesitant. The hall was once again filled with guests, but the mood was different. At the far end, Richard Campbell was gesturing nervously, surrounded by people trying to calm him down. "How did this happen?" he kept repeating loudly. "An entire dinner and no supplier available? What am I going to serve?" Michael understood immediately. The contracted catering had failed. On the table, only a few poorly arranged appetizers. The guests looked around, exchanging awkward comments. Richard's prestige was on the line in front of everyone. The staff member pushed Michael toward the center of the hall. "Here is the order, Mr. Campbell." Richard looked at him and for a moment seemed to recognize him. The cold, arrogant gaze returned. But before he could speak, Michael took the initiative. "I have more contacts with restaurants that are still delivering right now. If you'd like, I can fix this in just a few minutes." The hall went silent. The same man who had been ridiculed was now offering a solution. Richard hesitated, but he had no choice. The guests were already growing impatient. "Do whatever it takes," he replied, almost spitting the words. Michael rushed out of the mansion, called Vanessa, and quickly explained. She didn't think twice. She jumped on her motorcycle and started picking up orders from different restaurants, coordinating with him in real time. While Michael collected dishes in Westwood, Vanessa negotiated with managers in Santa Monica, begging for speed, asking for discounts, convincing cooks to prioritize their orders. In less than an hour, the two returned with boxes of hot food, pasta, seafood, salads, even improvised desserts. Together, they set up a table worthy of any banquet. The guests, surprised, began to praise. The air of embarrassment turned into relief. Richard, still displeased, was forced to acknowledge it in public. "Good job." The words came out dry, without genuine gratitude. But Michael felt something different this time. He was no longer just the invisible delivery driver. He had saved the night. As the guests served themselves, the blonde young woman he had noticed on his first visit discreetly approached. "Thank you for what you did," she said softly. "They'll never admit it, but you changed everything here today." Michael only nodded, unsure what to say. The memory of the humiliation still stung, but in that moment, inside that very mansion, he had reversed the roles. Outside, Vanessa was waiting with her motorcycle parked. When he stepped out, she smiled. "See? The ones who laughed at you just depended on your strength." Michael didn't answer. He only looked up at the cloudy sky, sensing that something bigger was about to happen. What he didn't know was that that night, seemingly resolved in silence, would have consequences far beyond a dinner saved. When Michael walked down the mansion steps that night with his backpack already empty, he believed everything had ended there. He had done his job, saved a millionaire's dinner, and received a dry, almost spat-out, "good job." Charlotte had thanked him in a low voice. Vanessa was waiting with her motorcycle, and life would go on in its tired rhythm. But in Los Angeles, nothing stayed within four walls. As he walked to his car, he noticed some guests discreetly recording the improvised buffet scene. One of them posted on their stories, "Who really saved the night in Beverly Hills?" Michael ignored it, without imagining the reach it would have. The next morning, still drowsy in his Inglewood apartment, his phone exploded with notifications, messages from strangers, friend requests, videos being shared. One recording showed him and Vanessa carrying boxes of food and hastily reorganizing the table, while the host circled in the background, visibly irritated. The caption was direct. "When respect arrives on a motorcycle and in a backpack." Michael froze at the screen. Vanessa called minutes later, unable to hide her surprise. Mike, did you see it? It's going around Twitter and TikTok. People are talking about delivery drivers, about how they treat us. I don't know if I like this, Vanessa. I don't want to be a symbol of anything. You didn't ask for it, but it happened. Now it's about all of us. That same day, Charlotte sent a short message. I need to talk. We can't let my father erase what happened. Richard, on the other hand, acted quickly. He hired a press officer to publish a statement. The Campbell family thanks the suppliers and partners who contributed to the success of the reception. No names mentioned. No reference to Michael or Vanessa. Just an attempt to turn everything into a gesture of organized partnership. That contrast hit Michael like a stone in the chest. He had been invisible the first time, humiliated in public. The second, he had been useful, yet still erased. True recognition came only from Charlotte's discreet looks and anonymous comments online. That night, he met Vanessa at a simple diner in Koreatown. Between soggy fries and watered-down soda, the two discussed what to do. They're going to try to shut this down, Mike, turn you into a footnote. And what if I let it go? I don't want to become a spectacle. It's not a spectacle when it's about dignity. As they talked, a young couple approached. Are you the guy from the video? The girl asked, smiling. I deliver with Uber Eats too. Thanks for showing what we go through. Michael was speechless. That simple gratitude was worth more than any envelope from Richard. In the following days, new videos surfaced. Guests who had been at the party posted accounts describing the panic before the couriers arrived and the arrogance of the host. Some local outlets began to cover it. Richard tried to suppress it, but the more he defended himself, the more he fueled the debate. Charlotte made a decision. She organized a small improvised press gathering in front of a cafe in West Hollywood and invited independent journalists. Michael hesitated to attend, but Vanessa insisted, if you don't speak, others will speak for you, and they'll twist it. At the press gathering, Michael didn't give an impassioned speech. He simply told how he was treated during the first delivery, described the humiliation, and then explained how, on the second time, he decided to help despite his wounded pride. I didn't ask for applause. I didn't ask for anything. Just respect. The silence after his words was more powerful than any headline. On the other side of town, Richard watched the scene on television, a glass of whiskey in hand. For him, it was unbearable to see a simple courier occupying space on channels that once reported only his business achievements. His face hardened. They don't understand the dynamic. They don't understand the game, he muttered. But the game had already changed. Michael left the cafe without hurry. Beside him, Vanessa smiled faintly, like someone who knew a spark had been lit. Charlotte walked one step behind, silent, but determined to face the consequences of confronting her own father. Between genuine recognition and renewed disdain, the story made one thing clear. The dignity of those who carry the city on their backs no longer fit in envelopes, nor could it be silenced by cold press statements. And what would come next would prove that spark was far from fading. The phone vibrated before 6. Michael already had his backpack on, waiting for the first order in Inglewood when he read the notifications. Mentions on Twitter, messages on Instagram, emails with the subject line, interview. A reporter from the Los Angeles Times asked for 5 minutes. KCRW radio wanted to hear from the delivery driver who saved a dinner in Beverly Hills, and a local channel, KTLA, requested footage. Vanessa, on the other side of the city, was crossing Wilshire Boulevard on her motorcycle when she received his short, trembling audio. This is out of my control. As Los Angeles woke up, the video kept spreading. Couriers from Santa Monica, Westwood, and Pico Union sent accounts. Customers who treated them as if they were invisible, withheld tips, bathrooms denied. A manager in West Hollywood wrote, "Here, water and bathrooms are always free for you." A sticker was born in just a few hours, printed in a rush. Safe Stop LA. Businesses that posted it on their storefront promised water, a bathroom, and an outlet. Small, practical, direct. Richard responded the way he knew best, with lawyers. A cease and desist arrived in Michael's email, accusing him of public distortions and reputational damage. The threat froze his hands. Vanessa read it top to bottom and stood up immediately. This isn't just about you, Mike. It's a message to all of us. If you back down, this letter becomes the template. That same day, Charlotte broke her silence. She published a text on her own X account and on Medium. What I saw that night and why I need to say this. She described, without adjectives, the joke that silenced the hall during the first delivery and the improvisation that saved the dinner the second time. She attached emails from vendors demanding overdue payments from the event company Richard had hired. The catering failure originated from unpaid bills. The post exploded. Dozens of guests confirmed her version. The focus of the conversation shifted. It was no longer about a host's whim, but about a chain of disregard that started at the top and spilled onto those carrying the city on their backs. 2 days later, the Beverly Hills City Council unexpectedly added a discussion item: best practices with outsourced workers at private events. The topic sounded bureaucratic, but the chamber filled up. Michael took the floor without theatrics. I don't want status, I don't want a stage. I want no delivery driver to be treated as worth less than a chandelier. Vanessa spoke next, as direct as ever. The city doesn't work without us. And yet, we can't even count on a glass of water. Charlotte asked for the microphone last. She looked at her father, seated in the last row with his aide, and took a breath. Wealth demands responsibility, and responsibility starts with respect, she said, holding up the Safe Stop LA sticker. I commit to funding 1,000 stickers, basic training for partner restaurants, and a fund to cover daily wages for anyone who faces retaliation. The murmur turned into genuine applause. Richard, pressed by stares, walked slowly to the podium. He tried a calculated statement. The Campbell family regrets any misunderstanding. He was interrupted by Monica Hernandez, the event organizer who had been at the party and now asked to speak. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was overdue bills and a cynical request for the team to fix it quietly. Without Michael and Vanessa, I would have been fired. The chamber held its breath. Richard swallowed hard, thanked her for the contribution, and left without looking back. The turnaround was complete. The narrative, once dictated by a crystal glass, now rested in the calloused hands of those who traversed the city. The following week, the Safe Stop LA sticker appeared in cafes on Fairfax Avenue, taquerias in West Adams, and pizzerias in Koreatown. Small changes created real impacts. Available outlets, glasses of water, a chair for 5 minutes. Some restaurants created a voluntary solidarity tip. When customers agreed, the amount went to a community fund. Charlotte contributed the first $10,000. Others followed. The platforms also felt the heat. Regional representatives from DoorDash and Uber Eats called Michael and Vanessa to a meeting in a co-working space in Culver City. The meeting didn't promise miracles but brought 2 pilot proposals: a button to report retaliatory ratings and a Safe Stop map integrated into the app, with locations verified by couriers. Michael listened skeptical and asked for metrics, deadlines, and public commitment. Vanessa was blunt. If this turns into marketing, we'll call it out. In the middle of this whirlwind, life didn't stop being heavy. Michael still woke before sunrise, still scraped together change for rent. But the loneliness, that feeling of being a shadow, began to fade. On a Friday night, he and Vanessa ate $2 tacos on a Boyle Heights corner. A delivery driver passed by, pointed to the sticker on the window, and gave a thumbs up. Thanks for this. Michael lowered his eyes, almost embarrassed. It was just a sticker, but it was also a sign that the city, even giant and distracted, could be nudged a few inches in the right direction. The message that shocked everyone didn't come in a headline, but in an invitation. UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs invited Michael and Vanessa for an open talk on urban labor. A simple theme: respect. They agreed on one condition: to bring anonymous couriers to the stage. On the night of the event, before students and residents, Michael told the story of the chandelier, the envelope of vouchers, the rain, the improvised table, and concluded, "We're not asking for applause. We're asking for a standard, the minimum." At the back of the auditorium, Charlotte applauded silently. The city kept moving, deadlines still pressed, orders still depended on a notification. Nothing turned into a fairy tale. But on the maps Michael and Vanessa now carried in their heads, points of light appeared. Friendly cafes, kitchens that knew their names, doors that opened without a condescending glance. When they left UCLA that night, the coastal wind swept through the darkness of sunset. Vanessa strapped on her helmet, started the motorcycle, and spoke without looking. "You noticed? It's not about the mansion. It's about those who cross the city and now know where they can stop." Michael nodded. His phone buzzed with a new delivery in Westwood. He accepted. Life went on, finally, with the weight shared and respect in sight. And you? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt invisible but ended up showing your true worth? Share your story in the comments. It might inspire many people. If this story moved you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Every bit of support strengthens this community that believes in respect and in the strength of those who never give up.